Hello, guys. Welcome back. It's been a long time.
Yes, what is the name of our podcast? It's been so long.
Well, it's Thinking is Infinite.
With
Joe.
John. We haven't done this in long time.
Yeah, last time we did a podcast was actually me and my brother. And then I think I did like a little shorts episode, just something to do. And then... yeah, we kind of...
fell off for a little while, but there was big reasons, right, Joe?
Yeah.
I mean, Joe...
things that have been happening.
Things that have been happening, and one of the things the biggest thing is Joe finished his senior year in high school.
Yes, I have.
Passed his road test.
Mm-hmm.
Went to the prom.
Yeah.
Picked out a college.
That was fun. The prom was fun.
Yeah, so Joe has been doing so much that we kind of put the podcast on, I guess, the so-called of a hiatus for a little while, right?
Yeah.
But it's been on our minds, and we every time we talk, we're like, when are we doing it? So today we're back. Yeah. So it's great to be back. How do you feel being back, Joe?
I feel like it's pretty good, I think it's actually really good thing.
So, Joe, talk to the audience briefly before we get into some topics and some of the things we wanted to talk about today. Talk about finishing school. How do you feel to be actually finished with high school?
It's been quite a while. Obviously, I've gone into all the different school levels, but high school is really the big one when you finish, because you actually go on to college. You've become an adult. It's been a pretty big transformation. I know that, with college, I have to still get prepared and stuff, but, I definitely think it's just kind of a different landscape I'll have to navigate and all that, so it's a pretty big change.
Would you like to tell the audience where you're going?
Hofstra, yeah.
Yeah, Hofstra University. Joe, I'm so proud of Joe. He buried his SATs. I mean, he did phenomenal on them, and learned how to drive, has a part-time job right now, and he's liking it. And you went to the prom. All I heard was that you danced up a storm. Talk to me a little bit more about the prom. Talk to me about the beginning. What'd you do? What'd you eat?
The beginning... we went in a limousine with some of my friends, and then we kind of had a little bit... when we went there was a lot of, there was, different things that they had, but, the food was, prepared by the staff. I didn't really like a lot of it, but I did eat the pasta. The pasta was pretty good, but I didn't really like a lot of the other stuff. But what I did do was I danced a lot. Yes, I definitely did.
Now talk to me. What did all your school classmates do? Because a lot of guys don't really dance on the dance floor. Or were there a lot of guys dancing?
There were a lot of guys dancing on the dance floor.
Oh, good.
In fact, the vast majority of people were dancing.
Oh, good.
Both boys and girls. Not even, regardless of gender, they were both dancing.
Were they giving you the go, Joe? Go, Joe. Go, Joe?
Not quite, but... they definitely,
but I heard they were pulling you back on the dance floor every time you got off, right?
Well, they weren't exactly doing that. They weren't going that far. But I did, I usually just, went on and off. So I would, go on, go off, whenever.
Depending on the song and stuff?
No, not even depending on that. Just depending on when I was tired. So then I would go off the dance floor, rest a little bit, drink a little water, and then go back on. And we just kind of went back and forth between there.
Everyone has one moment from a prom that they will never forget. Do you have that moment, Joe? Is there one moment during the prom where you had the biggest smile on and you said, really, I'm having a great time?
I don't know. Probably when, I remembered when we were, it was when we were in, the limo, probably, because we went to the prom site. And I remembered, we kind of played, different songs. And I remember, everyone was kind of, debating over which song to play. And, sometimes we would all play, different songs from, a playlist that she had. And I thought that, it was, I remembered once, my friend, they played one of my songs. I began, singing to it. And then they were, kind of, cheering me on or something.
What song was that?
I can't quite remember now. I think it was Super Bass, I think.
Nice. So you were rapping to it?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
For a little bit. It was we played 1 minute of each song. So it was a little brief snippet of each.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And Joe's driving now and has the part-time job and getting ready for school. It's been a wild ride, and hence the time off from the podcast for a little while, right, bud?
Yeah.
So Joe has typically, to go behind the scenes of how we were running the podcast, is Joe and I would probably start texting a week before each podcast and go over topics and kind of share news articles, things like that were interesting to one of us or two of us. And then we would actually talk about the topic. Joe did not give me the topic until maybe 2 minutes ago, and I'm not even sure what we're talking about. So, Joe, why don't you lead us off into what is on that brilliant mind right now?
Well, there has been pretty big news from Redbox. Now, Redbox was one of the last DVD rental places, and I say was because they have filed for bankruptcy and have now shut down. So they will be selling off all like the Redbox kiosks. They will be laying off all their employees, and that was kind of the big news from the DVD rental scene, I guess.
Wow, I didn't even know. I mean, it sounds pretty natural that it would have run its course at this point. I'm surprised they were still around at this point.
Yeah.
So the Red Boxes were at, like, in front of 7-Elevens and stuff like that, right?
Yes,
right?
That's where we would always go and get the Red Box when we did it back in, like, 16, 17, we usually did that.
Now, is Redbox trying to reinvent themselves, or are they going to go completely out of business?
They're going completely under.
They're going completely under.
Because their parent company has filed for bankruptcy. Because I think someone acquired Redbox, and then that parent company, like, it's a complete disaster for them. They can't pay their bills. They can't really pay their bills. They can't pay their creditors. They can't pay their employees. They've actually withheld their pay, like, because they literally don't have enough money to pay them. Like, they basically don't have any money left, so they really can't continue anymore.
It's amazing how certain technologies will wipe out a company, right? If you're not constantly evolving, and a company like Redbox, yes, they were almost like a storefront in front of a 7-Eleven or something, but they really had no other option. Like, Netflix, remember, I don't know if you remember,
Netflix was a mail-in service.
Exactly. And I remember Netflix being a mail-in service where you would go on the computer and you would put the movies you want on there. Yeah. And once they would send you one, you watch it, you could keep it as long as you want, and when you're ready for the next movie, you sent it back.
Yes.
And what they were able to do, since they were a service that had an online presence, well as mailing to your house, they were able to evolve into a somewhat successful streaming service.
Yes.
And unfortunately, a company like Redbox, since they couldn't pivot to that because they had no online presence. Or did they? I don't even know if they did have an online.
Yeah, they really didn't. The only thing that they really did was, like, supply movies. But again, a lot of people were already paying for subscriptions to access the movies in the first place. So Redbox just wasn't really a good option. But I think I want to add on to that Netflix thing, because this is really the end of the DVD rental era.
Oh, yeah.
There were 3 chains mainly that did DVD rentals: Blockbuster, Redbox, and Netflix. And now all 3 of them, their rental services are dead. We had Blockbuster, which actually was a pretty interesting case because they actually did streaming before Netflix. They did streaming back in 2000.
Wow. I don't remember that.
It was a completely... what happened was Blockbuster, they did a streaming service, and it actually could have worked. They signed a 20-year deal, but the problem was that the 20-year deal, the technology company that was supplying the streaming service, was Enron. Enron was the company they chose.
Oh my goodness!
After they didn't acquire Netflix.
Talk about bad luck.
Yeah. Enron was the company they chose. Which, if you don't know, Enron basically lied about all their financial reporting. It was one of the biggest scandals back in the 2000s. So just before that came out, they signed a 20-year deal with Enron, and they were going to do streaming. But then obviously they dissolved because Enron failed completely.
Wow, I didn't know that. I had no knowledge of that whatsoever. So think about it. If it wasn't for Enron and their shady accounting practices, Blockbuster could be an app on your TV right now.
Possibly. I mean, they tried other things too.
I know they tried to do it online.
They also tried partnerships with DirecTV too. So they also tried like partnerships with DirecTV. They did try doing like an online presence, but they didn't really fully commit to it. And eventually Netflix outperformed them also through sheer luck too. Because there was at one point a time where Blockbuster tried to announce the end of their late fees. Remember that was back in like 2006.
Yes, I do remember that.
And they had a service where you would be able to rent DVDs from Blockbuster and you could exchange them in their stores. So they would actually outperform Netflix in that regard. But then what ended up happening was an investor shut that down, an investor for Blockbuster, because they felt they weren't making enough money. Mm-hmm. But that was a big mistake because the service was bringing in more cash that they did need, but it wasn't making money fast enough, so the investor shut it down, and eventually their online attempts kind of fell through, you know?
Well, you know what's so interesting, Joe? I remember Blockbuster well, and anyone who's my age, and I'm the big 5-0, so I do remember very vividly the joy of going into a Blockbuster Video on a Friday night, and they would have the most popular movies, they would have maybe 20 or 30 copies of them, and it was the best thing in the world to go and grab that movie off the shelf, and they would have a little candy like a movie theater, that had popcorn, and they'd have like little snacks, and you'd have your Blockbuster card, and I may still even have my Blockbuster card somewhere in a box somewhere, and it was fun. I used to love it, and you'd have to go back in 2 days, and then in 2 days sometimes you went and rented another movie depending on what you were doing. To me, it was almost like an outing. It was almost like going out somewhere, and I guess I'm romanticizing it a little bit because it was fun. It was a fun thing to do, and it's amazing how technology can really take a company down, and I remember, Joe, them talking about streaming television. Mm-hmm. And they were talking about the technology is there in these cables, the cables that you see on the fiber optics, that you can have TV, like your TV could be running off this, like streaming services and on demand. And it was so foreign to me. I'm like, wait, on demand? You can actually just pick a movie and just press it and it'll be on there for you? It was so foreign to me. And now it's so ingrained in all of us that when a movie comes out, even new movies right now, right? They go, some of them go right to
streaming.
And you could see a first-run movie right away.
But that's what they tried to do with, ironically enough, Enron of all companies. Because they basically, they chose the worst candidate unknowingly, because Enron at the time seemed like a promising investment.
They were a huge company at the time. Everyone knew of Enron.
Yeah.
I even think they had the name on a baseball stadium, I think. I think there was in Houston or something. They were a Texas company, right? Or something like that. I remember that. Now, all right, Joe, so talk to me. Have you read, I mean, this is brand new, I'm just shooting off the hip here. What do you think the next technology is going to be? And do you think there's going to be a fallout? Like, what's next? I mean, like, it feels like it's almost like we hit what we could hit, but what do you think is next? How's the streaming services going to get enhanced, do you think?
I honestly think streaming services might, I don't know about this, but they might actually become more consolidated, because streaming services, there's a lot of them now.
Yes, there's
a lot.
Everyone has a $10 subscription,
and I think that can prove itself untenable for some of these streaming services who maybe don't provide as much value. So I think now
there's
going to be competition. Well, not just that, but there might be competition between these services of who has the most value and who has the most thing that you're going to want to pay for. Because now you're spending a lot more than you did in the past. In the past, it was just Netflix. You paid for a $10 subscription. You got Netflix. Bam, now you got everything. And now everything's on a different service.
I know. They have Max. They have Hulu. They have Netflix. They have Disney Plus.
And it's possible that some of these services might start to combine into each other. For instance, Disney owns Hulu, and it also owns ESPN Plus. So it could be possible for Disney to combine all these into one service rather than having them all three. There could also be certain things that certain like rebrandings. You know, there've already been some like rebranding attempts. I know like HBO Max rebranded to just Max, and then they cut a bunch of stuff, you know, with all these different mergers and things. So it is something that also could. There's also another big thing. There is a return to physical media, just not with movies, because music, a lot of young people are now starting to buy vinyls, and they're starting to buy records.
Love that.
And a lot of them are going to record stores, buying the old records.
Again, there was something romantic about it. Going to the record store was one of my favorite things to do back when I was a kid. Mm-hmm. It was. I'm so glad that certain things like this are happening, because there's things that are missing is retail, is having a nice store, whether it be clothing store, because everyone buys their stuff online. Yes, I like the convenience of Amazon. You click on a button, it's out your door the next morning if you get that fast shipping, which sometimes in the same day, which is amazing. Or you go the night before, 10 o'clock at night, you click on it, 6 a.m., it's already at your house. Yeah. There's some conveniences there, but there's something great about going to the store and actually touching something and feeling it and going, this is a record, and I'm going to own this. You think about it, you have a Apple Music on your phone. You can download any music or Spotify or whatever, and you can click on any song at any time. But isn't it great to actually own a piece of the music, like a vinyl? And I'm glad that vinyls are making a comeback with the youth.
Yeah, they are. I've seen a lot of artists now sell vinyls. Like they'll promote their vinyls, and a lot of people will buy them because they actually, whether online or in person, even in record stores, there was like a whole record day, apparently, where people will go to record stores to buy
once
music.
A year. They always had it, but it was very niche, like very few
niche.
People niche. I guess what I'm saying, it was niche, and not many people
grew now.
Now it's grown big, and I love it. And the thing I loved about records back in the day was that they would come with a little jacket, and in the jacket, in the record, I don't know if they still have them in the new records, but you'd have all the lyrics to the songs and stuff, and it felt good to have it. And then the record album, they would be so creative in the artwork or a picture of the artist or something, and it was a lot of fun, and I'm so glad that that's making a comeback. So, you know, although sometimes technology makes things easier for us, you'll lose some of the pleasure of owning something, and I'm glad that's at least happening. Now, as far as movies and TVs go, what do you think about this, Joe? I always wondered if they could do this in some way, shape, or form. Now Netflix, right? You have Netflix, and now when I turn on Netflix, I'm watching a show, and then all of a sudden a 1.5-minute commercial comes on. They never used to have ads. Now they have ads on there. Yeah. So it gets a little annoying. And like you said, you know, if I like maybe The Office, it's on Peacock, or if I like a certain show of Friends, it's on HBO or something like that. All these great shows are on different platforms. I would love to have an a la carte. Let me pay $2.99 to get all Modern Family or something, and on that, and then I don't have to pay $10, $11 because I'm only really watching 1 or 2 shows on that particular platform. Mm-hmm. What do you think? Do you think a company would ever do that, or do you think it wouldn't be cost effective for them?
The only one that does it is Prime Video. Prime Video does that, but not with absolutely everything, but it does have a lot on there. Mm-hmm. And then there's also Google actually has that, surprisingly. Google actually has like YouTube TV, I guess, where it will like you can buy certain episodes from there, but I think the big thing is a lot of companies want their own subscription services. They want to make money themselves. They don't really want to do with a third party. So it's kind of a difficult kind of thing for as a company to convince you that, oh, well, you could do it with a third party. Yeah, but like, why wouldn't I keep it for myself? But then there's also the issue of ads, which I think actually kind of goes into another big thing, which is that ads have gotten really much more in frequency over the past few years. You know, there's been a lot more ads, and there's been a lot more frequent ads on a lot of different things.
Yes, and now they're like 1.5 and like 2 minutes. And you know what I find myself, because I'm always so tired at night. Again, 50. But I'll sit there and be watching a show. I'll fall asleep during the ads. And then I'll pass out, and then an hour later the show will be like, "Are you still watching?" You know, you'll wake up to the "Are you still watching?" sign.
Yeah, I know.
And I think sometimes the ads make me fall asleep, and I'm like, I'm sorry.
I know. I know. Well, they are very boring.
Now obviously they're trying to add revenue to their service by selling advertising. I understand it's part of how they make money, but it is kind of annoying. I'm not a big fan of it, but I'm definitely starting to see it more.
Yeah, and it's also like there was also another big thing that happened. With ads, a lot of it's also on news sites. News sites are very infamous for ads because unlike like streaming services, or they at least like pause it, at least giving you like 10 minutes for content, and then they'll like maybe do an ad here, or it's more similar if you get like, assuming that you're on an ad supported plan, you can actually get plans with no ads. But, like, on news sites, you can't even get anything with no ads. So, apparently, like, a lot of news sites, if you pay for the subscription, you still get ads. And the subscriptions are, like, pretty expensive as well. So, a lot of people don't really like it for that reason. And there's a lot of, like...
And another thing I can't stand is when you click on a website, because you find a news story somewhat appealing enough to click through to it, and they got a video in between, and they got words, and they got a video and a picture, and I'm like, is the video related to the story or not related to the story? And most of the time it's not. And I'm like, I click on it, now next thing you know, I'm watching an Audi ad or something like that. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I'm like, I just want to read the story. And then when you're reading, and all of a sudden it'll say, the continue reading button is like this tiny little button, and you can't find it, and you're like, oh my god, and then there's words underneath it. That drives me insane.
Yeah, I know.
Why do they do that? And do you really like clicking back on a site like that?
Yeah, it's so absurd because like they spam it at you way too much. Like ads, at least back in like the olden internet days, at least they had like, they were like more sparse. Like you had like one on the bottom, right? And even in newspapers, that's the case. You have like one on the bottom of the article. Okay, fine. No one really cares about that, but they've gradually increased the amount to the point where a lot of users actually have ad blocks. So they'll buy like ad blocks that block the ads because they don't want to see the ads. And it's something that a lot of companies are now trying to like stop, but
it is absolutely insane. I can't stand it, Joe. I mean, when I'm trying to read an article, I'm trying to get information. I'm trying to like, dig into a news article, and all it is I can't find the next page or the continue reading button. I'm telling you. And then when they have a pop-up, my finger can't hit that X properly. And if I move my finger to the left a little bit, next thing you know, I'm routed to another ad.
I know, it's crazy. And another big thing that I can't stand about modern news sites is the quality of articles they put out. If you are going to subject me to that many advertisements, at least have me reading something good. And this is for everything now.
Yes.
Because there was an article, and it was the most absurd sensationalization I've ever seen. And I'm telling you that right now. Because there was a research paper that some people in the scientific community, I don't know what the researchers' names are, they published a research paper about hippos, and one of the big things that they discovered was that hippos can lift their legs off the ground for 0.3 seconds. And when the journalists published the article, they claimed that because they could do that for 0.3 seconds, that they could fly. That's what they tried to claim. I'm not joking. All the headlines were like, they can fly. Like
flying hippos. So wait, because what do they do? Jump?
Yeah, like
just jump for 0.3
seconds.
0.3 seconds is not even a half second. It's a half of a second almost, right? So it's and it's flying.
Yeah, that's
kind of like Boeing.
To claim. Well, maybe kind of
better than Boeing.
Yeah, that's kind of true.
I'm at the point right now. If I fly, I'm like, is it a Boeing or is it an Airbus? Please, all right, I'll take an Airbus. Boeing, no.
True.
Do the hippos' doors fly off too when they go up in the air for 0.3 seconds?
Maybe. Who knows? Honestly, like...
Now, Joe, now that we're talking about news, I'm going to ask you a question about one of the biggest news stories over the past 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. Now, sometimes we talk politics, sometimes we don't, but this is going to be more about... Did you see the debate 2 weeks ago?
I did not. I heard about it, and I don't want to watch it.
I don't blame you. But now I want to talk to you about, like, what now, I watched it. I'm tuned in a little bit more to what's going on in the political world. Where you're like entrenched in the business world, and I can't even begin to be at your level in the business world. Now, one of the weird things, since probably in the past 20 years, I've never seen the country so split. Right? And it's every single topic, either, half the people are for it, half the people hate it. I heard a guy say this, and it made so much sense. If they shot a rocket to the moon right now, today, and people started walking on the moon again, it would be politicized in some stupid way, shape, or form. Sure. Because we're so divided as a country, and it's almost like everyone has to take their team, their side, or their jersey, whether it's a D or an R, and jump into that. Now, there's some people in the middle, but most of the people are so entrenched in their thoughts that it's hard to make them budge, right, Joe? I mean, you've seen it. You've been around and you've paid enough attention to the political climate. Our president right now, though, this is the first time where both sides are going, oh boy, this guy's too old to this job. He really can't do it.
Yeah, I even saw Democrats did.
Right, both sides are saying it.
They wanted to maybe replace him, although a lot of people are trying to say, like, no, we shouldn't, because he actually stands a better chance than other candidates.
Right.
But, like, there was definitely a movement. There is definitely a movement within the Democratic Party to, like, get rid of him,
right?
And maybe replace him with someone else.
That's why I wanted to talk to you about it. So I'm glad you brought that up, Joe. I've been thinking about this since the debate, and I'm coming up with a theory right now, and the audience and you are the first ones to hear it, okay? Because I've been thinking about what is going on.
Yeah.
Okay.
True.
Now, obviously, the man is in a cognitive decline.
Yeah, I mean,
badly.
We've seen
there's
some
80-year-olds. There's 80-year-olds that can just fire off facts, and they're sharp as a tack. Unfortunately, this man, for his sake, I'm not the biggest fan, but his sake, something is really wrong, right?
Possibly.
It's pretty sure.
Because I have seen some things saying, like, some of them are, like, exaggerated clips. Like, some of them aren't,
but that's what I mean. If that's why I asked you if you watched the debate. If you watched the debate, you would have been like, oh boy, that was an hour and a half that was a train wreck.
Yeah, maybe.
He couldn't get out of his own way. He couldn't complete a sentence.
I did hear it was, like, really bad
for Biden. It was really bad for him. So, regardless of the political viewpoints, and that, throw that aside, and if you just watched the debate and watched a man speaking, I wouldn't trust him, Joe. I wouldn't drop him off at a supermarket, give him $20, and trust that he could come back with the things I asked him for. Maybe, that's how bad he looked.
Yeah.
So now, the reason why I'm saying is this. This is my theory, okay? I think, and bear with me here, I think that the people that were sheltering him, his closest advisors,
his allies
in the White House, someone got fed up with his ability to think and ability to make decisions, and here's what they did. They told him to go on Twitter and demand a debate with Trump.
Maybe.
Now, here's why I think that way. The first debate was in June.
Yeah.
I've been alive. I'm 50 years old. I've been politically kind of following politics since I was probably a teenager. I was kind of interested in it back then as a 16, 17, 18-year-old. There has never been a debate that early.
Oh.
Ever. So I think my theory is this. Someone around the White House knew that this guy couldn't run the next term.
Maybe.
So they probably told him, hey, Joe, go out there and debate Trump right now to show the world how horrible in shape he is to replace him.
Maybe, but they could also...
Because why would you have a debate that early? Because in 2020, if you remember in 2020, yes, we had the pandemic, yes, we had a lot of things going on. Biden was never out campaighning. He stayed, he did a lot of online stuff. They did a ton of online advertisements. They had an amazing large presence on social media.
Yeah, on like TikTok and
TikTok's
everything.
TV commercials, YouTube ads. So they were all over the place. Right, you name it. But they only debated in October, a month before the election. He did a debate in June. It didn't make sense to me. Now, when I watched the debate, here's why I think it was planned. after I watched the debate, okay?
Yeah.
It was a CNN debate. CNN is very kind to Biden and not so kind to Trump, right?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Everyone knows that. They're a slanted news organization.
Yeah,
just like everyone
been that
is.
way. They've always been that
exactly,
way. Yeah,
exactly.
They're always that way.
So here's my theory, and here's why. As soon as that debate ended, everyone on the panel, there was a panel of 12 people. 12 of them were saying, it's time for Biden to go. It's time for Biden to go. He's got to go. He's got to go. He's got to go. Now, these are the same newscasters that have watched him for the last 3 years and never said a word about it.
Yeah.
Why? Why do you think they didn't say a word about it? He was falling. He was losing his place in meetings and stuff. And you would see him on the air when he was shaking hands to nobody and looking like he didn't know where to go. Now, granted, they were short clips. And like you were saying, because you don't really follow it, you're like, yes, I heard that they were taking edited clips of him. But if you see those small edited clips and him struggling for 2 years, now you're surprised that he looked so bad?
I mean, here's the thing, though. A lot of the edited clips were, like, missing context, I've heard. Like, a lot of them, for instance, with one of them, with him, like, looking to the right towards, like, a bunch of Marines or whatever. Stuff, he was actually looking at parachuters, not just, like, looking to nowhere. So I think they were at least able to point to that, downplay it.
Yes, that one I understand, because when I saw that one, I was like, okay, that wasn't the worst of how I've seen him. Where I seen him really struggling, like, is he's doing a speech and he'll just go, and nothing would come out. And you're like, what the hell did he just say?
But they could downplay it then because it wasn't planned on their network. If it's planned on their network, they can't downplay it anymore because it's on their network.
Well, that's the point. Now, he does speeches all the time. They were hiding his mistakes and they weren't showing it on the network until 90 minutes he was standing on a podium struggling mightily, and then they had no choice but to advertise it. But do you think maybe, I'm being a little conspiracy theory here.
Yeah.
Do you think maybe someone in the White House told him to set up a debate early, then got onto the news and said, listen, guys, after this is over, he's gonna really look horrible. He can't even stay awake. And after he does it, try to get rid of him?
I don't know. I feel like, I do think this was definitely something like that, but I actually think it was due to arrogance. I don't actually think it was due to them
good point.
Losing
you
confidence.
Think he was so arrogant?
I think it was the opposite. I think he was so confident that
with
they were going to do well, that they did this. I don't think it was underconfidence at all, because the way that I feel like if they had someone to replace him, they would have done it. But the problem was that they don't really have anyone else.
That's true.
So they don't really have anyone else. Because two of them were California governors who would need approval from California, which isn't going to happen. And then one of them is Kamala, who would perform even worse than him. So they don't really have a second option. And Biden's campaign team is not a big fan of Kamala. Right. They don't like each other.
I know.
They only run together because they're, like, bound by something.
Well, he set her up as the vice president.
Yeah, so, like, I would actually think that it was not them trying to, like, stab him in the back.
And want to take out.
Yeah, I actually think it was I think it was arrogance. Arrogance I think it wasn't even on his part. I think it was on the campaign team's part. I really think the campaign team genuinely thought he would perform so well on this that, like, because you know how they've been downplaying a lot of this.
Right.
So I actually think it was them thinking that he was going to do really well.
Now, do you think we are now in mid-July, right? Do you think he's going to be on the ballot in November?
I actually do, because I don't think they have a good replacement, or one that they'll be willing to accept.
Yeah.
Because, like, again, Gavin, the one that they had at least most talked about, he's trying to run in 2028.
Right.
And he's not, and that would be a better run for him anyway.
Yeah, because he would be able to build a campaign.
Yeah, he wouldn't be able to do that now.
He'd have to slide in now and hope that he can get enough momentum. But here's the big problem. Where I heard, because due to campaign laws, finance laws, any donor that gave money to the Biden campaign that he hasn't used yet, let's just say he's got $100 million in his war chest. They call it a war chest when they have money in there. He's not allowed to transfer that to anyone other than Kamala Harris because it's the Biden-Harris re-election campaign. So if Gavin Newsom jumps into the fray, right, or let's say Hillary Clinton or whoever jumps in and says they want to run, they can't use that money. Isn't that amazing?
Another big thing is that the other candidate, Kamala, she polls worse. She polls worse. She polls worse than Biden. And another big thing that a lot of people don't even consider is that any split in the party loses votes and that loses confidence. If they decide that they're going to replace him, that's something that looks bad on the whole party and that loses them votes. So I just don't think that that's something that they were ever willing to do because it would shake things up too much. It would disturb things too much. I 100% believe that if it was this bad and they I don't think that they knew. I think that they were so confident they went for it, and it didn't work.
Wow, talk about one of the biggest backfires in the history of election seasons.
Maybe.
Because he went from a very tight race to now obviously polls don't really matter. It really matters who. Let's face it, it matters who gets the most votes on election day, or whatever, or whoever has the most ballots in their name wins the election. Polls don't win elections, but wow, what a change in the last month of momentum of all the media. Now, a lot of the media, which was really covering it up, a lot of his cognitive issues, or not reporting it or whatever, whether they were covering it up on purpose or just not reporting it. I think they were covering it up, but some people think they just didn't report it. Fine. Now they're reporting it like every day. They can't stop talking about it. They're like, is he coming out? Is he going to leave? 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 And they're really badgering this guy because he looks like he can't do the job anymore. Now, think about it this way. Another thought, not even just election. Do you think he should be president right now? Because of his inability to get through.
I genuinely think he was never. I don't even know if he was really ever the guy in charge. Because honestly,
I agree.
Because honestly, if that is true, and I haven't watched the debate myself, so I can't 100% confirm. But if that is true, and he was barely making speeches, and I have seen some of his failures at his speeches, and he really is performing that badly, I don't know if he'd be making any decisions. And that would also add more credence to my theory, because a lot of if his allies were being, if they were only in power because this guy couldn't really make decisions for himself, they would want a puppet. They wouldn't want someone that could actually make decisions.
Right.
So I don't think it was someone in his team conspiring against him, because then they might lose their power or some of their influence.
Good
if that
point.
Makes sense.
But what if it was someone not in his inner circle, but just outside the circle that was like, oh my God, this guy can't even get through a sentence right now?
I don't know. I feel like even then,
it's so bizarre.
Wouldn't be ideal.
It's so bizarre.
I think they were just so arrowgant, though. I think he just was so.
It could be that simple. There's a term called Occam's razor, right?
Yeah.
You know what Occam's razor is?
Yeah, I've heard of it.
Okay.
It's
it basically means the most probable reason is most likely the reason. Mm-hmm. And maybe your simple approach saying he's arrogant.
Yeah.
And maybe he was just arrogant going, I could take Trump on. I'll do it now. Because he went on Twitter about a month and a half ago, about a month before the debate, and says, I'll debate you anytime and anywhere. And of course, Trump, because he's Mr. Machismo, he's like, I'll debate you now. And so then all of a sudden, next thing you know, they're in June. So to me, I was like, when looking back going, wow, was this planned or was it not? My mind goes to those places now, because I feel like we've been misled and lied and manipulated by so much of the media, especially since COVID, that I don't believe anything I read anymore. You should see me. When something pops up on my news feed, I check 5 different sources to see if that's true, no matter what source it's coming from.
Yeah.
Whether it's coming from the left, whether it's coming from the right. Even if it's coming from a media source that I kind of trust, I'll even check that out 4 or 5 times because I don't believe anyone anymore.
I mean, we've seen the sensationalism. We even saw it with the hippo story.
Yeah.
They're willing to do that. They're willing to go that far. So they will exaggerate anything.
Flying hippos.
Flying hippos.
So I guess we have to stay tuned for and wait for the wild ride of election season because it's going to be crazy.
Yep. And speaking of stay tuned, that should mark the end of this whole episode.
Yeah, we talked for a little while on this one, right, Joe?
Yep.
All right, Joe. Listen, first of all, I want to thank everyone for giving us another listen, right, Joe?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And we're going to do this a little more often, right?
Yep.
And I really appreciate everyone's time. I appreciate talking to you, Joe.
Yep. Okay.
And listen, guys, thank you so much for listening and share and like and follow and do all those fun things. And if you like what you heard, definitely share it with someone that may not have ever heard of our podcast, right?
Yep. And we will see you guys next time.